And yesterday we were able to only do 2 verses, so today we'll try and move a little faster. So there's a total of 28 verses in the Stuti. So just in the interest of time, we will not do the Sanskrit, we'll do the English translation and then some discussion on that. So verse 3, the Supreme Godhead is the supreme platform on which everything rests, the ingredients by which everything has been produced, and the person who has created, and is the only cause of this cosmic manifestation. Nonetheless, he is different from the cause and the result. I surrender unto him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is self-sufficient in everything. So, the previous verse, Gajendra glorifies the Lord as the supreme origin, that he is the origin of everything. Now he says that he is the cause of everything. So what is the difference between the two? Right? Gajendra is moving very, very methodically in his realizations. Right? So picture Gajendra as somebody who is, so to speak, walking on the path of self-discovery. He's looking around himself. Now, his progress is fairly rapid from verse to verse, but at least that progression is there. So he says that in the previous verse he says that the Lord is the origin of everything. Now he says that he is the supreme energy, he is the cause of everything. What would be the difference between the two? There's a subtle difference, but nevertheless a distinct difference.
I can share like an example, Prabhuji. Like, the origin for my education may be starting from LKG, UKG and all. But the cause of it is my parents made me to go to school. So without he doing that, my dad doing that, like I might not be starting. So both need not be same. It can be same, but it need not be same.
Okay, very good. Anybody else?
The origin need not be conscious or having intention, but cause will definitely have some impetus or some. It's implied, I guess, that there's a consciousness behind it.
Consciousness. Yeah, much closer. So, origin is like the parents may be the origin of the children, but after that the children are on their own. Right? So they grow on their own. Right? But the difference here is that Krishna not only creates everything, he is also continuously creating within that creation. So all the causes, the ability of the universe for the people to procreate, for the universe to exist, that comes continuously from Krishna. So there is no disassociation. It's not that the button is pushed, the universe comes up, and then Krishna takes a back seat. No, he jumps right into it, and then he continues to crank the process of creation within the universe. Srila Prabhupada also notes that this is Gajendra indicating the
stand is on its way.
So this is Gajendra indicating to the Achanta Bheda Bhed Tattva. Right, because he says that while he is the cause of it, he is also distinct from it. Right, the whole concept of the simultaneous oneness and difference. That if somebody is continuously involved in the creation, one would assume that one is also getting exhausted in that creation, or one is getting changed through that creation. Right? But Gajendra said that's not happening. And Prabhupada gives the classic example of the potter's wheel, and the earth, the earthen pot. You know, all of you are familiar with that. To talk about the indication of the Achintya Bheda Ved Tattva. Now, in this context, so there is one of these, so to say, you know, that the I will stump you kind of questions. That what comes first, the seed or the tree? And people ask this question. If you say the seed, then you'll say the seed comes from the tree. If you say the tree, you say the tree comes from the seed. Now with this, you can answer that question authoritatively. And what would be the answer to the question if somebody asks you if the seed comes first or the tree?
Seed.
Huh?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows Achintya Ved. What else? Should be able to authoritatively.
That unknown thing is Sri Krishna.
The?
That unknown power is Sri Krishna.
Very good. So the answer is that the question is flawed. Right? So neither the seed nor the tree, Krishna comes first. Right? So Krishna says, Aham bija prada pita, in the Bhagavad Gita, right? I am the origin of everything. All the seeds are all the species, right? So if somebody asks which comes first, the tree or the seed, you'll say neither. Krishna comes first. And then Prabhupada says if somebody will ask you that, so there is a momentum in this causality, chain of causality, right? So you say I come from my parents come from their parents, and go on, we come from the Prajapatis. So there is a momentum that is built in traversing this chain of causality until you hit Krishna. And Prabhupada says the philosophers make the mistake that they allow the momentum to carry them beyond that point. Then they say that who created Krishna? Right? But at some point, that question becomes irrelevant. That Prabhupada quotes the famous Brahma Samhita verse, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidanand Vikram, Anadiradi Govinda, Sarva Karana, Karana. Right? So, just because something is true here does not mean it will be true in the context of Krishna. The Prabhupada is trying to make sure that we understand that. The main problem with the materialists, the impersonalists, the Mayavadis is that they extrapolate linearly. That because this is true, this is true, this is true, and even when they reach Krishna, they say, so this should also be true. Everything has a cause, so Krishna needs to have a cause. Everything takes birth and gets destroyed, so Krishna also has to. And Srila Prabhupada makes this point that just like this question, which seed, whether the seed or the tree comes first, at some point becomes irrelevant. Similarly, traversing this chain of causality at some point becomes irrelevant. Okay, so next verse 4. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding His own energy, keeps this cosmic manifestation visible and again sometimes renders it invisible. He is both the supreme cause and the supreme result, the observer and the witness in all circumstances. Thus, He is transcendental to everything. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead give me protection. So 6 attributes Gajendra is talking about. He's saying that He makes the cosmic manifestation visible and invisible. So the question is, why isn't He saying that He creates and destroys? Why is He saying that He makes it visible and invisible?
Because it's eternal, so He's just saying manifest, unmanifest?
Because, yes, because essentially their energies of Krishna, they're eternal. Krishna is just manipulating his energy. So we know that when Krishna destroys the universe, it's not that the universe is destroyed. Everything goes back into the Mahatattva. The Mahatattva goes back into the Pradhan. The Pradhan goes back into Mahavishnu. And when the Mahavishnu exhales again, then the opposite happens. The Mahatattva Pradhan happens, Mahatattva universe. Right? So that's why Gajendra very intelligently is making this point that he makes it visible and invisible. Then he says that he is the witness and the observer. What's the difference between the witness and the observer? Now this, to give you a clue over here, this has something to do with Gajendra's prayer that comes later on in this verse, where he says that, give me protection. Right? So he makes this distinction that he makes this distinction that he is the witness and he is the observer. So what's the difference between a witness and observer? This is just from the perspective of semantics. What's the difference between the two?
Perhaps the witness can vouch for you, whereas the observer just, or the other way around can also be true. But one of them can vouch for your.
Very, very close. So by nature, a witness is passive. All that the witness is doing is witnessing. Right? But the observer, they are more. Now they are not a part of the thing, but they are more involved in the outcome. Like when there is sometimes the United Nations, they send the people, they send them as observers. So they're actively observing. Based on that, they will say this place needs more medicines, this place needs more supplies, etc. So they're observers. They're actively doing something based on what they see. Witness does not do that. Right? Now, what is Krishna as a witness? Paramatma. Right? Upadrasta anumantarsta bharta bhorta maheshwara. Right? So all he is doing is that he is witnessing. You do bad things, Paramatma is not going to stop you. Just witnessing it, right? And also recording it. He needs to get beaten up later on, right? So records it, but never will he stop. Now, when people become more spiritually advanced, then the super soul changes the role. What? Okay. So when people become more advanced, then the super soul changes the role, becomes more of an observer from a witness. And because then people have this thing that somebody calls it conscience, somebody calls it my inner voice, somebody calls it my sixth sense. But that's essentially the super soul for more people who are more spiritually advanced, speaking to them. Do this, don't do this, this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing. But for those who are more materially engrossed, super soul is as a witness. Now, Gajendra, here he says, please protect me. So, the point he's making is, please don't be a witness anymore. Observe my plight and protect me. In his whole prayers, only 2 times Gajendra will ask for protection. And that also earlier on in his prayers. After that, he stops asking for protection. So you see his mood will change. First he asks for protection, then he asks for shelter. Then he asks for liberation. And then he asks for nothing. After that he just glorifies the Lord. Namastute, namastute, right? So you see how his mood, that's why this prayers are so beautiful, because in 28 verses, it charts the entire path of a devotee. from the first realization to mature realization, and from being completely in the material conception to reaching a fairly exalted stage of. Now he does not reach the point of Gajendra does not reach the point of let me serve you. Doesn't reach that. That's why they say that after this you chant Gopi Geet, where the mood completely is let me serve you, let me serve you. It starts from Gopi Geet, starts from service and ends in service. But nevertheless it reaches the point of extricating oneself from the material conception into one of causeless surrender. Gajendra also, in the verse, he addresses the Lord as Paratpara. So Para means transcendence, and Paratpara means transcendence of transcendence. What does that mean? Transcendence of transcendence.
It in a way like material, because transcending is crossing over. Crossing over is again like, it's like opposite, but Krishna is never material, so I don't know how to.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
He is beyond everything.
Kind of makes me think of like soul of the soul, kind of like Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagwan.
Exactly. So transcendence of transcendence is this is Vishnu Chakravarti's explanation. So all glories to you, Prabhu. So Vishnu Chakravarti says that Gajendra in his mind is thinking that I'm in this material conception and the transcendence to me is Brahman. But then who is the cause of the Brahman? What is something that even transcends Brahman? And he says that is Krishna. Right. Or he says, which is also acceptable, he says that there is the Paramatma within me. Who is the cause of the Paramatma? Right. Both explanations we say that are acceptable. But what is Gajendra pointing to now? He's pointing to the fact that Krishna is perceived in different ways. Right? He's talking about the Swayam Bhagwan, and he's talking about the Krishna's Brahman or Paramatma realization. And in his prayers he will go through that. Right? He will initially talk about Krishna as Paramatma. And then towards the end, he will start talking about Krishna as Bhagwan. So we see that why there is so much, now the yogis, it's said they meditate on the Paramatma, but even for those who are not yogis, there is a lot of attraction to the Paramatma. We see that in the mood of Gajendra, because he's like, I'm here in trouble right now, who's there along with me? Right, and there is the Paramatma sitting right in the heart, right next to the Jiva. Right, so even though Krishna is Krishna, he can be everywhere, but there is this sense of comfort that the Paramatma is right here within me. So that's why first he turns to the Paramatma. Now here he is saying, I know the difference. Paratpara. He says, I know the difference. There is Bhagwan, and then there is the Brahman or Paramatma, but he will still begin to pray to the Paramatma. Because he is right there in the body, he is witnessing everything that is happening, and he is saying that, my dear Paramatma, stop being a witness. Take some action now. Now you have observed what is happening, do something about it. Okay, let's go to the so this is verse 5. In due course of time, when all the causative and effective manifestations of the universe, including the planets and the directors and maintainers, are annihilated, there is a situation of dense darkness. Above this darkness, however, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I take shelter of His lotus feet. So Gajendra has talked about Krishna being the origin of everything, the cause of everything. He has talked about how He is the material, He manifests the material world. Now, what is He talking about? How He destroys the material world. So He is referring to he refers to, interestingly, he refers to death as Panchatvam. So, Panchatvam literally means the dissolution of the 5 elements. So, so the point he's making is the death only happens to the body, because it's the body that is made of the 5 elements. Right? So, Krishna is never the cause of the destruction of the soul. Quite the opposite, right? But he's saying what happens is the destruction of the 5 elements, which all the way from the universe to the body of the individual is equally applicable. Everything around is made by a combination of these 5 elements, and the destruction is the rearrangement of these 5 elements. So when he lists the things that are destroyed, he says lokeshu, that all the planets or all the universal bodies that exist. Paleshu means the Prajapatis, those who are protecting the universe. Personalities like Brahma and Indra. Then he says the Sarvaheteshu. Sarvaheteshu means that those who are the cause of others. And so those who are procreating and having children, those who are creating other things, creating buildings, or if they are demigods, they are creating planets and oceans, Sarvaheteshu. Those who are the hetu, they are the cause, they are destroyed. And then he says, Kritashnasha, everything else, things that I have not covered, everything else is destroyed. Now, he says, after everything is destroyed, the only thing that remains is the Lord. Okay? Now, one might say that there is a technical error in the statement. What's the error in the statement? After everything is destroyed, he says, the only thing that remains is the Lord.
Soul is not
It
destructible.
is, very good. Right, the soul remains. So somebody might say that the soul is also indestructible. The soul also remains. But then he qualifies with the statement that the Lord remains completely unaffected. Not so for the soul. The soul goes into Sushupti. Right? It goes into deep sleep. It essentially is completely covered at the time. But not the Lord. For the Lord, there is no difference. Right? And that makes another point also. Sometimes people say that the Lord is a product of the material world. Right? They say that if nobody thinks of God, then how can God exist? Basically saying God is a product of the material world. But here the point is being made that He is completely independent of the material world. Right? When all the elements are destroyed, He remains. When all the jivas are covered in deep sleep, He remains. So when the jivas are covered in deep sleep, then they are not there imagining that the Lord exists, but then He still exists. Right? Which means that the Lord is the cause of everything, but He is not caused by anything. Okay? Next verse, verse 6. An artist on stage being covered by attractive dresses and dancing with different movements is not understood by his audience. Similarly, the activities and features of the supreme artist cannot be understood even by the demigods or great sages, and certainly not by those who are unintelligent like animals. Neither the demigods and sages nor the unintelligent can understand the features of the Lord, nor can they express in words his actual position. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead give me protection. Second time he is asking for protection, after that he won't ask for protection. There, right? So he says that Ma Avatu. So the point that is being made here is that if the Lord is so intricately connected with this universe, he is creating it, maintaining it, destroying it, cause of all causes, etc., etc., then you should see him around. Everybody should see him around. They should see him doing stuff all the time. That, okay, here's God, he's making the tree grow, he's causing the seeds to germinate, or he's destroying the planets over there. But he says, he gives the analogy that that if there is a play that is enacted, so we enacted the Ramlila play, so we can relate to it, that if there's a play that is enacted and the actors are doing the parts well, then all that the people will see is the role that they are playing. They will not be able to decipher who is that person behind that role. Right? And Prabhupada expands on this a little bit, saying that for the most part, right? He says, but devotees can. Devotees can see the Lord, but then he says they can see the Lord because the Lord allows himself to be seen by them. But otherwise, because the Lord is like an expert actor, he's playing the roles in such a consummate way that people do not see his hand at all. So Gajendra is making the point that just because you do not see the Lord does not mean he does not exist. It means that he is inconceivable. Right? Prabhupada at one point, I think a journalist asked a question, similar question, and Prabhupada said that, do you know your father? He said, yes. Do you know your grandfather? Yes. Do you know your great-grandfather? No. Great-great-grandfather? No. You think they existed? Yes, of course. So just because you haven't seen your great-grandfather doesn't mean he doesn't exist. The fact that you are here means that they existed. Right? So you can apply the same logic there. Okay, verse 7. Renunciates and great sages who see all living beings equally, who are friendly to everyone, who flawlessly practice in the forest the vows of brahmacharya, vanapras, and sannyas, desire to see the all auspicious lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead be my destination. So we see his mood is changed now, right? Previous verse, what was he saying that? May the Supreme Personality of Godhead be my protection. Now he's saying, be my destination. Whether I live or I die, I don't really care. As long as I have the shelter of the Lord. And he's expanding on the fact that even though Krishna is disguised consummately, but there are certain qualities that attracts his mercy. And because of that, he allows himself to be seen. Right? And in this verse, he talks about 5 qualities that attracts Krishna to the devotee or the aspiring devotee or the jiva. So, Vimukta Sangha, person who is free of bad association. And here essentially he is talking about the root of good and bad. The root of good is good association, which, as we know in Nectar of Instruction, that point is made over and over again. Jan Sanghashalo Adyamcha. Right? So, Sankhyaga. 2 times Rupa Goswami emphasizes on this, both as a do and a don't. Right? Do is to associate, and don't is to associate with devotees, and don't is to not associate with non-devotees. So, Hare Krishna. So then, based on this, he says, Charanti Aloka Vratam, that those who keeps their vows as brahmacharya, vanaprastha and sannyas. So Gajendra removes grahasthas from this. But what is he talking about? What is the path that he's talking about over here? Who said that? Very good. So he's talking about, and what path does Varnashram talk about? Karma. Right. Those who follow the path of karma. Right. Then second that he says is Muniya. What is he talking about over here? Muniya is people who are munis. So Muni is one who can agitate the mind. What path is he talking about now?
Meditation.
Jnana.
So now he's talking about Jnana. Then he says then he talks about the Surdas. So the Surdas are those who are the well-wishers of everyone. Who are these?
Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Krishna. Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Bhagavad So Krishna.
The devotees.
Right words, wrong answer. What does it talk about? Surdama Sarvabhutana Yatva Mam Shantam Rakshati. Right? So it's talking about the yogis. The yogis are the well-wishers of everybody because they see the same Lord sitting with everybody. Right? And then fourth he talks about is the Susadhavas. The Susadhavas, those who are very nicely practicing sadhana. So who is he talking about over here? The devotees, right? So he's being a little democratic at this point. He's not. Later on he will focus more on the devotees, but he's saying that the Lord is so merciful that those who are strictly following the Varnashram dharma, those who are following the path of Jnana, those who are following the path of Yoga, Astanga Yoga, or those who are strictly following the sadhana Vaidhi Bhakti, they are able to see beyond the roles that Krishna puts. Okay. Next is verse 8 and 9. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no material birth, activities, name, form, qualities or forms. To fulfill the purpose for which this material world is created and destroyed, he comes in the form of a human being like Lord Ram or Lord Krishna by his original internal potency. He has immense potency, and in various forms, all free from material contamination, he acts wonderfully. He is therefore the Supreme Brahman. I offer my respects unto him. So what is the verse talking about? Oh, Haribol. So what is this verse talking about?
Prabhuji, could you repeat the verse?
You want me to repeat the whole verse? Long verse.
Sorry.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no material birth, activities, name, form, qualities or faults. To fulfill the purpose for which this material world is created and destroyed, he comes in the form of a human being like Lord Ram or Lord Krishna by his original internal potency. He has immense potency, and in various forms, all free from material contamination, he acts wonderfully. He is therefore the Supreme Brahman. I offer my respects to him.
His omnipotence sounds like.
Omnipotence? Okay. What else?
Talking about the Bhagwan feature.
So he's
to know
talking.
right
To
and
lead by
wrong.
example.
He
To
is what?
know, to realize what is right and what is wrong.
What is right and wrong. It's very good. Okay.
To lead by example, Prabhu.
Huh?
Because you have an example set. So set an example or lead by example. In the form of Ram and Krishna.
Yes. So he's talking about the incarnations of Krishna, right? So in the previous verse, he had said that very few people can see the person behind the mask. And then somebody would say, but there is Ram, there is Krishna, there is Vara, there is Narsimhadev, it is there. Everybody can see them there. And Gajendra says, yes, but they are an exception. So this verse essentially, in brief, it talks about the science of incarnation. So first he talks about why does he incarnate? Right? So he says to fulfill the purpose for which the material world is created. What is the purpose of the creation of this material world?
To redeem the fallen souls.
To
Redeem the fallen souls.
redeem, very good. To redeem the fallen soul, right? So just because there are some jivas who are rebellious and Krishna kindly gives them another opportunity, he creates the material world, right? So for that purpose, he comes in the form of a human being. Now when Krishna comes in the form of a human being, does he become human? He does not. Right? So Gajendra is negating this notion that I know of Krishna who took birth from Devaki and Yashoda. And when he was born, he was small, and then he grew up. And then he got married and he had children, and then he died. Right? Interestingly, this point was made to me by a priest there's a temple in Pennsylvania somewhere. We had once gone. There is a Ranganathan temple, new Ranganathan, so to speak, but they have a very beautiful Ranganathan, DT over there. So he was kind of debating with me, not really debating, mostly scolding me. That he was saying that Lord Vishnu is the supreme, and then I was saying when in the Bhagavatam it says Yete Chamsa Kala Pumsha, right? And he said, yeah, but look at it. He says Krishna took birth. This. Is this the quality of the supreme? You show me one place where Lord Vishnu takes birth. Right? You'll never see Lord Vishnu dying also. So what does it mean? That who's the supreme? Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. And at the end of the day, there's really no difference between the two. It's again one of those futile arguments. It's kind of saying that when a person goes to work, that person is supreme, or when the person comes home, Prabhupada would say Vishnu is Lord, is Krishna when he is in an official garb, right? And when he is at home with friends and family, then is Krishna. But Gajendra is negating the notion that just because you see Lord Ram and Lord Krishna, now he doesn't mention Ram and Krishna by name in the verse. Prabhupada adds it for context there. But he's making this point that look at the mercy of the Lord, that he is exposing himself to this kind of criticism from the very people that he is trying to help. He created this whole universe for us. He personally comes down over here to help us. And then what happens is we criticize him. But he's still there helping us. Can you find somebody more merciful? Right? So Gajendra's mood is now naturally gravitating towards the mercy aspect. Right? So far it's the Aishwarya aspect of the Lord. He creates, he maintains, he destroys, he is unchanged, but he's very merciful. Right? So the Dainya component is coming along. Okay, verse 10. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the self-effulgent Supersoul, who's the witness in everyone's heart and enlightens the individual soul, and who cannot be reached by exercises of the mind, words, or consciousness. So here, Gajendra he begins to talk about the Paramatma. Right? So when he says, who is the witness in everyone's heart? Right? So he's drawing our attention to the Lord accompanying the Jiva as the Paramatma. And Srila Prabhupada writes that same point he makes that Gajendra made earlier on, that when the Jiva embarks on the path of devotion, then the Paramatma, instead of being a witness, becomes an active agent in helping the Jiva progress. So what are the verses in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna talks about this transition? Where he says that now I'm helping, I'm revealing from within. Chaturshloki. Which verse? Tesham evanukam partha aham agyamajam tima ashyami. So he says that ananyas chintayantu, the one who is meditating on me, he says that, then how does he reciprocate? So from within the heart I give them the knowledge. Who's sitting there in the heart? The Paramatma. The same Paramatma that is Upadrasta Mantasta Bharta Bhorta Maheshwara, right? Who's simply sitting and watching, witnessing. Now the same Super Soul is actively helping. He is revealing the knowledge. That's why once Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj, he was so as you know, Bhaktisiddhanta was a near genius, right? A great scholar, knew the scriptures inside out. By the time he was 5 years old, he was giving full-on classes in Bhagavad Gita. He had memorized the whole Gita. Now, who was his guru? Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, right? Bhaktisiddhanta was so erudite that when he was 21, he was offered he had written a commentary on Surya Siddhanta. It's a Vedic book on astronomy, and it's considered one of the very, very difficult books to understand. So he written a commentary, and he was offered the chair in this Calcutta University, King George College or something, a very, very prestigious place, to chair the astronomy board over there, right? And he declined. He said, I wrote it because it was part of the scriptures, but that's not what I want to do. His spiritual master was Gaurkishore Das Babaji, who didn't know how to read and write. Right? He was, so to speak, literally illiterate, right? And people asked that how could somebody like you took shelter of Gaurkishore Das Babaji? And it wasn't that Gaurkishore Das Babaji said, come on, I'll make you my disciple. Bhaktisiddhanta went over there like 10 or 11 times, saying that please make me your disciple. And he would say, come tomorrow, I'm busy, I'll think about it. Then he said, I'll ask Krishna. And then you come, and then he came back and he said, did you ask Krishna? He said, yeah. Krishna said no. So, he kept saying. Then finally Bhaktisiddhanta came and he says that if you don't give me initiation today, I'm going to jump into this pond and die. And then Gaurkishore Das Babaji gave him initiation. But the point he made was, and this was of course humility as a disciple, but also tattva, that the realizations of Gaurkishore Das Babaji was much, much more advanced. The whole Tesha Nevaram Partha, that what the Paramatma revealed to him was much, much more than anybody could understand by simply reading the scriptures. That's why there is a big difference between reading and realizing the Bhagavad Gita. Anybody can read the Bhagavad Gita, and there are people who know the Bhagavad Gita very, very nicely inside out. Right? I must have shared that when I would go for these Vaishnava Christian dialogues, then some of the Christians who were part of there was one person who was he was a professor in Harvard. He knew the entire Bhagavad Gita. He knew all the 700 verses. He had memorized all the 700 verses. And he had studied like 11, 12 commentaries. On every verse, he would give commentary from Madhava, commentary from Ramanuja, commentary from Nimbark. He would give all this commentary. Right? But then when he would speak on the verse, and then when somebody from the Vaishnava side would speak on it, you will see the big difference. Like he would speak from a very scholarly way. This Sanskrit word means like this, and in this context the Visarga makes it like this, so it translates like this. And when somebody from the Vaishnava side would speak, then so much language realization, practical application, appreciation there. And that's the difference between knowledge and realization. What converts knowledge to realization? Practice. And when we do our sadhana bhakti, when we get the mercy, then the knowledge becomes realization. Right? So like we all have this knowledge that we are the body, we are not the body, we are the soul. But how do we get the realization? When do we start acting on that platform? That we are not the body, we are the soul. Like Rompat Maharaj once gave that thing that we keep saying we are not the body, until the time we get a scratch on the body, and then we say we are the body, we are the body. So that's where there's a gap between knowledge and realization, right? That now of course even a realized person, if he gets a scratch, he look at it, but won't get to it. Right? That's the difference between the two. Okay. Okay. So we'll stop over here as instructed and. Any concluding thoughts? Questions, comments? Yes, true.
Thank you, Prabhu. So I was wondering, you spoke about how a devotee sees Krishna everywhere. And I was thinking, we could think about this in many ways. How does a devotee actually see Krishna everywhere? One could say, okay, he or she sees the material energy and relates it to Krishna, or that they see that Krishna is the cause behind everything and he's everything. But at a more advanced level, like Prahlad Maharaj, he's seeing Nrsimhadev in the pillar probably. He's just seeing. So I was wondering, how does a devotee see Krishna? Like, if you could comment, how do you see Krishna in everything?
Thank you, Prabhu.
What do you?
Thank you. I think the observation you made in the first part is that as practicing devotees, um, our adhikar is to see it from Gyan Chakshu. That when we see things happening, like when we see people acting according to the modes, we see the modes in effect, and the Deviya Shigunmai Mamaya Durate, and we see Krishna behind the modes, or when we see the material creation and destruction, we see that happen. And when you become more advanced, then it is said that the material world becomes a reminder for Krishna. Because more advanced devotees, they don't forget. We forget Krishna, so we try to see Krishna, that this is there. The more advanced devotees, they're already seeing Krishna. So there was this, I forget who was the Acharya, but if he would see lightning in the sky, he would faint, because he would see Krishna and Radha. So he would see the golden lightning and the dark background, and he would see that there is Radha and Krishna. Or when they see the dark monsoon clouds, they see Krishna there. So then the mood is a little bit different there, right? So it's like in the 10th chapter, Krishna says that when you see all these opulences of mine, they will remind you of me. Because in the initial stages, we see the material world. And Krishna says, when you see the material world, then you can think of me. The taste of water or the ability of man. But when the devotees are more advanced, then they are already seeing Krishna. So when they see the material world, then they see that material world as Krishna. Right? So the mood changes at that time. So hopefully with mercy of Prabhupada we might reach that state someday.
Just a question about realization when you said about it. And you gave an example about that Prabhuji who can recite all the slokas and everything. I read Bhagavatam, but I forget about sloka. I can't even remember what I read yesterday about it. And I'm just talking about realization of Paramatma and how one does have that realization. I understand yogis at a time and all those realizations, but in this time, in this, living in this, what are some of the symptoms that one feels has a realization that Paramatma resides within? The ways how we can know about that.
Thank you. Very good question. So for the first part, so you said you read the Bhagavatam and you forget about it, right? Right. And then you read some more next day. So what keeps you going? Why do you read every day?
It just attracts.
So there's a taste to it, right? So you don't forget everything. You remember the taste.
Some. Yes.
Right. So that's what keeps us going in our spiritual life, right? It's the taste for the spiritual life. Because our natural propensity right now is to derive taste from the material world. And that's what keeps us going for the most of the time, right? But when we start getting a higher taste somewhere else, then we start pursuing that. Right? Good to remember. It's good to remember to retain something, but more important is to develop a taste for it, right? I think the second question was, how does Paramatma realization actually manifest? So Krishna explains in the 6th chapter, how does it manifest? That when the person starts realizing the Paramatma, then he becomes a friend to everybody. Regardless of, whether the person is a Brahman or the person is a Chandal or the person is it's a dog or a dog eater. Why does the person become friend? So there are two levels of realizations. There is the realization of the soul, that I'm not the body, I'm the than the soul. When that realization happens, then the person stops being inimical to anyone. Because they realize even the enemy, they say this is just a product of the modes of material nature. Essentially, that person is a spirit soul, I am a spirit soul. Even if the person is trying to harm me, my karma, his karma, the soul is spiritual. So they stop being inimical. When the Paramatma realization manifests, the person becomes friendly. Why does he become friendly? Because when he looks at the soul, he sees that sitting right next to the soul is the super soul. So he says that. So it's like if I have a person that I am very, very friendly with, right? And that person says I'm also friend with that person, then naturally I'll be friendly to them. So when he says that this is the Paramatma that I'm worshipping in myself, but that same Paramatma is accompanying that soul also. So then that friendliness appears. Also, at the level of Atma realization, there is still some discrimination. That when the person sees a soul trapped in the body of a Chandal, then they say that the reason this person is in the body of a Chandal is because he performs sinful activities. So there is still some discrimination there. But when they see at the platform of the Super Soul, there is no discrimination. That even though he may have performed sinful activities, but my worshipful Super Soul is sitting right next to him also. Right? So the vision of the yogi that Krishna explains in the 6th chapter, which manifests this this aspect of Paramatma realization is one of universal friendliness.
Thank you. Hare Krishna Prabhu, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I had a question. Yesterday you were talking about that Ajmal, when he remembered Krishna, he knew the name, but he was appreciating the form, bhav of the Lord. And here, Gajendra, he didn't know the name, but he was appreciating the form, name of the qualities of the Lord. And our acharyas always talk about doing it with bhav, that bhav is very important, feelings is very important. So how did Ajmal get mercy of the Lord, or how do I reconcile these two comments? And the reason for me asking is not so much as Ajmal, but also that is doing just ritual without bhav is similar to what Ajmal would do, and doing bhav without ritual is similar to what Gajendra would do. So as a devotee, how should we be thinking about and practicing Krishna consciousness?
Thank you. That's a good question. So what you're saying about Ajmal is right from the perspective of Ajmal phase 1. So what it is said is that when Ajmal he saw the Yamdutas, in desperation he started calling Narayan, Narayan. He was calling his son. Right? He was not calling the Lord. But the potency of the holy name is that it started giving him realizations. And at that moment, he started, because there is Purva Rasa also. Ajmal was a devotee before he fell. Right? So he used to worship Lord Narayan. That's why he named his kids, even though he was sinful, that's why he named his kids Narayan. So when he started saying Narayan, Narayan, the power of the chanting, so Ajmal's calling Narayan, Narayan is very similar to us chanting right now. We're chanting, most of us are chanting from a material part.
Correct.
Just the voice incarnation, right? But the potency is, it still acts. And then it started giving Ajmal the realizations that there is Lord Narayan. And that Lord Narayan is not different from his name. When as soon as that realization, because think of it this way, why did the Yamdutas come anyway? Why didn't the Vishnu Dutas come right away? Because when Ajmal progressed in this realization, then Vishnu Dutas. When his chanting went from simply the mechanical speaking of a name to Namabhas. And he started getting a glimpse. He didn't reach the stage of Shuddha. He got 6 months to practice that. But he reached the stage of Namabhas, the Vishnu Dutas appeared. Okay? Right away. Same thing we see in Gajendra. Like you're saying, he's going in the opposite end of the food chain. He's talking about the qualities, appreciating the qualities. And what is the last thing that happens? That Lord Vishnu comes and he says, Om Namo Narayana. First time he says the name, Om Namo Narayana. And then what does Lord Vishnu do? He reaches out, he takes his hand, well, elephant, so well, I guess he takes his maybe tail. So something he takes and pulls him. Okay, right? And as soon as Lord Vishnu touches him, he gets a spiritual body. Then okay. So in a way they do converge at that point, but from different.
Beautiful. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we have heard in your classes in a different context that the best way to understand Krishna is that we cannot understand him. And I'm mixing the two contexts, and here in this context we hear about God realization through prayers and the bhava. Two different contexts, but Prabhuji, how do we understand them in like single context?
Thank you, Prabhu. So I would qualify that statement by saying that the best way to understand Krishna is understanding that we can never understand him without his mercy. Right? Because if you look at it, if there was a period after you can never understand him, what's the point of the scriptures then? Right? What's the point in Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita, Hum Sarvasya Prabhu Matara Sabam? He's talking about all this when he says that, Mudas, these guys can't understand anyway. Right? But he's giving us an opportunity to be qualified so that he can bestow that understanding on us. Right? So what is our effort? That we become qualified to receive the mercy of the Lord, and then he reveals according to his supreme will and our qualification. And even when we get the mercy of the Lord, then the fact that there are different rasas, even in the spiritual world, means that different recipients of the mercy. Okay? Depends on what the jiva wants. But ultimately it's bestowed by the Lord, but we have to be qualified to attract that mercy.
Makes sense.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you. Prabhuji, why do we fail to act on our realizations? Even if we formally have a realization, it's hard to act on it. Like, sense gratification will never satisfy us. We understand that. But then we keep engaging in sense gratification, whether it's food or something else. So how do we, what makes it hard to act on realizations that we understand, but hard to act on it?
So we know that something is not, or we should do something else, which is probably better for a spiritual life, but we still don't do it, right? Or we something that is detrimental. It's because of anarthas. What is the source of anarthas? 3 sources of anarthas: our previous sinful activities, our previous pious activities, and the offenses that we did in the execution of bhakti. Because of these 3 sources, we carry a bag of anarthas with us. And anarthas is kind of like is like you have a steering wheel in your hand, but it's not properly aligned. So you have to go take the car this way, but it's not aligned, so it always pulls in a different direction. And what is the way to remove anartha? Rupa Goswami says that what is the prerequisite to anartha nivritti? Bhajan kriya. That by simply following the rules and regulations of sadhana Vaidhi, that's why it's called Vaidhi. That when we have anarthas, spontaneously we will more often than not do the wrong thing. Like if somebody says that, if you tell somebody, Prabhu chant a round of the Maha Mantra, the person says, I'm chanting all the day. You know, why should I chant around? And then you say, if you're chanting all the day, then at least chant around. And then they say, no, I don't believe in, chanting around. Why? Because when you're left on your own, the most will always take you towards the material. So that's why the Vaidhi is there. That without questioning it too much, follow the Vidhi. When somebody says, why 16 rounds, why not 8, why not 18? Yes, why not 8, why not 18? It's 16 because the Acharyas have said 16. Right. It used to be 64, and then Prabhupada said 16. Fortunately for us, so we have 16 now. But then it's 16. If he had said 15, we would have chanted 15. But that's the protection of Vidhi. And when the Acharya gives an instruction, he also gives the protection along with. Follow the 4 regulative principles, chant the prescribed number of rounds, and then your anarthas will diminish. Once you have crossed the stage of anartha nivritti, then nishtha, ruchi, then the more spontaneous aspects of bhakti will, then it's a different challenge. That by nature your mind will go towards bhakti, but you have to steer it back, saying, no, I have to earn a living, no, I have to take care of my body. Then it's a different kind of steering that happens at that time. But until that happens, we follow the rules and regulations.
Prabhuji, I have one question about the chanting. You said 15 rounds or 16 rounds. One time, there was one prophet standing in line, and to buy some milk. And he saw the lady who's selling the milk, and she would count the bills, how many bills, and then count the amount of milk and give it to the person, Everybody will come. Then one good-looking guy comes, and he comes and gives a smile. She just takes the money, puts it there, and gives him milk. They didn't even count them. Then the prophet realized that she was in love with him, Then he realized that this girl had taught me, I'm in love with God, I should be counting all the number of chants, how many rounds, just because she taught me that when you are in love, you don't count anything. So why count all this number of times? Because you are in love. Then you can count all day long here.
So I think the qualifier to that is when you are in love.
Yeah, you are in love with God.
So first fall in love with God, then stop counting.
Then stop counting. But if you stop
until you're not in love with God, chant 16 rounds. Or until you have, our constitutional position is one of in love with God, right?
Yeah, then you don't count.
But it's covered right now. Right now we are in love with so many other things.
Very true.
Right? So because it's so much, we are in love with the body, Deha Patrikala Tradesh, everything that comes from the body, we are in love with that. God is there somewhere, especially when we are in distress, then He's there somewhere. But we have a big laundry list of things that we are in love with. So everyone should act according to the adhikar. People look at very advanced devotees, they copy the external symptoms without reaching the internal realizations. They are sahajiyas, pretenders. They will look at really advanced devotees and and say that this devotee is simply sitting, he doesn't take a bath, he doesn't, all he does is chant, right? So you look into the heart of that person. There is only the Lord in the heart. When you are at that stage when there is only Lord in the heart, then yes, do that. But until the time then your heart is full of many material things, chant 16 minutes.
So 16 is to start with. Alright? And once you cross that, then you're okay.
Yeah, for us 16 is it. It's not starting or finishing. 16 is it. So from tomorrow onwards, 16 rounds for you. Yeah? Okay, so was there? No?
Let all people question.
No, please go ahead.
I will ask at the end, sir.
Okay, I think this is the end, right? Go ahead.
Sir, I handle children. So when I handle children of say 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, so I develop love. They also develop love and then embrace me. And mere talking and whatever way, even if they are not able to talk, that talk promotes some happiness, gives happiness in us, and we fondle the child. Now we say in this Vaishnavism or God, spiritual love towards God, we say we do Saranagati just like Prahalad. Why such devotion or total surrender like Prahalad does not come to normal devotees like me? I again emphasize my question. That is, we know we have to worship God. We pray God through sloka or this japa and all. But when we handle the child and the child talks to us, the child does not express any wants from us. It embraces whatever we say, it takes. In the same manner, when Prahalad also, when the father imposed lot of punishments, even throwing him down the hill, he did not say anything. He did not object. He said, doesn't matter, I am free. Whether to give me life or kill him, it is his mercy. So I don't make any comment on it. So such a devotion, why it is not coming to ordinary people? For that, just tell me or kindle where actually we make mistake, so that we develop such quality of surrender.
Thank you. So, very good question. Thank you for your realization also. So, Srila Prabhupada would give this example of, so like if you see a mango on a tree, so when the mango first appears, it's, in Hindi we call it amya, it's very hard, it's bitter, and then over time it grows, it becomes soft, it becomes juicy. It's still a mango, right? Whether the mango is hard or whether it is soft, it's still a mango, right? So the nature of the Jivere Swarup hoye Krishna Nityadas. That's the nature of the soul. The position where Prahlad Maharaj reached, that's our intrinsic position, that's our right, that's our intrinsic position. Why are we not able to be at that position? Because we are placing our faith elsewhere.
We are placing
our faith elsewhere. Elsewhere, in other places. As long as we place our faith in other places, so Jiva Goswami, he says that as long as the jiva is bahirmukhi, so bahirmukhi means, understand? So bahirmukhi is facing away from Krishna. It's not that Krishna is facing away from us. Krishna is there ready. Just like he was there ready to catch Prahlad when he was thrown. Just like he was ready to protect Prahlad, he's still ready for us. It's not Krishna's fault. We are bahirmukhi. We have turned away from Krishna. Now how do we turn towards Krishna? Krishna gives us that process also. Right? Evam parampara praptam. Right? we basically attach ourselves to a bona fide sampradaya. Once we attach ourselves to that sampradaya by taking diksha, then we follow the rules and regulations of Vaidhi Bhakti. As we follow the rules and regulations of Vaidhi Bhakti, then whatever contaminations that we have because of who knows how many lives we have lived in the past, what all kinds of lives we have lived. We may have been demigods, we may have been demons, who knows whatever, right? But we're carrying, the subtle body is carrying all that contamination. By the process of regulated devotional service, that contaminations are gradually eradicated. So then the Bahirmukhi Jiva becomes Krishnamukhi. Then it turns towards Krishna. Krishna's hand is always out. Right? I don't know the Sanskrit, but one step we take, 10 step Krishna takes. Right? Little effort from our side, lot of effort from Krishna's side. We have small steps, Krishna has big steps, Vamandev steps, right? And he takes many of them. Right? So all we have to do is to follow the process that Krishna gives us. That's an adhikar right now. Right? When we follow that process, Krishna assures us that this is the Ananyas Chantayas Mam Ye Janapuri. That when you think of me, when you reach the stage of thinking of me, then I will be there waiting for you. Yes?
If you say it this way, I mean, for a normal person, it is very difficult to pick up. I'll put the same question in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
See, I am an illiterate.
Mm-hmm.
And now, unless I am admitted in a school.
Mm-hmm.
So then I do first standard. So when I enter the school, I don't know anything. But once when I finish first standard, I understand the difference between an illiteracy and first standard. I am able to recognize, understand what is the alphabet and what is ABCD like that. So like that, even when you are attached to Acharya, so then what are I would say an ordinary person attached or willing to get attached.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the steps to realize that I am progressing? Because as you say, once when we reach Bahirmukhi, Antarbukhi.
Mm-hmm.
Antarbukhi hone ke baad, then God takes us.
Mm-hmm.
But normally we only say see the picture, see the idol and say do bhakti. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Or when the Acharya comes face to face, okay, I was doing service to my parents, now I will do service to my Acharya. So when he is attached to God, so naturally he will give me love, fondle me and then take me closer to God. With that intention he starts. So what he only does physical seva, that mental seva he is yet to develop so that he gets totally attached to God.
Mm-hmm.
So now, you please tell me, just to guide me, how one realizes or what are the steps one will naturally pass through before attaining such peak level.
Thank you. So I'll give a short answer to this, and because we're running out of time, we can cut to the discussion. Two things will happen that you can see for yourself, that you will know, that will tell you that you're making advancements. That was the question, right? How do I know that I'm making advancements in the path of spiritual life?
Progress.
Two things will happen. You will become materially detached and you will become spiritually attached. Right? So things that were materially important to you will be less important to you. Right? And spiritual attachment is the things that were earlier on not important to you, adhyatmic, they will become important to you. So these are discernible symptoms. These are you can see in yourself day by day. When Arjuna was in the battlefield, his son was killed in front of him. Abhimanyu was killed, right? He had already heard the Gita from Krishna. Krishna was sitting right there next to him, and his son was killed. Did it bewilder Arjuna? No. Did he feel sad? Yes. He felt sad, he felt angry, but did it stop him from doing his duty? No. So he was displaying these two things. He was displaying material detachment, that yes, I lost my son, it is bad, it is cataclysmic, but I have my duty to do. And he was displaying spiritual attachment, that Krishna wants me to fight, so how do I continue serving him? By continuing in my duty. So similarly, in our case, it will happen in a much more subtle way. But nevertheless, it will happen. As we practice bhakti, we will see that things that would earlier on bewilder us from a material perspective, that my neighbor is throwing the garbage in my house and my car is not starting and whatever it is, all that will still happen. But it will not affect you as much. What will affect you? When you go and stand in front of the deity, when you chant your japa, that will affect you more. Right? So that is what Krishna promises us. That from the first step that you take, we will see that difference. Thank you for your wonderful questions. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.